Hello, I'm Gavin Duffy from RealSim, and this is a recording of a presentation I gave to Dublin City Council staff on April 15th. Here I'm covering the work that was recently done on what would be described as the 2019 Dublin City Docklands digital twin model. So it represents an update and an upgrade of the model. I originally titled this presentation a transformative opportunity for planning assessment. I think after the meeting I realized that it could have also been called for internal operations, as a number of attendees recognized the potential of the model as a sort of a central repository for multiple projects, so that even people within the council can understand what's going on. It's easy to understand that in such a large organisation with many different things going on, how silos can develop. So even for the internal as well as the external engagement, I think this digital twin offers a great opportunity to help operations all around. So just to define the term digital twin, or specifically for urban planning, is what we're talking about, it has three main components, and we take a very literal term to the term digital twin. Other people also describe it as a digitalization of a process. For us, it really is a very visual digital replica of what we see around us. So the first thing you need is a 3D buildings and terrain model, and that's essentially orthophotography, that's top-down area photography draped over terrain surface, and accurately presented 3D building models. These can come in various different ranges of level of detail, which we'll see a little later on. But this is the core component. It's the key mapping component of a digital twin. This data can be heavy to render, and I say render, that means sort of processed in real time onto our screen. So we need a rendering engine, and the technology that's best suited for that is game engine technology. So we've developed our own customized geospatial game engine to render this information on our screens at least 30 frames per second, and it really is as simple as a game. If you know how to navigate Google Street View, you know how to navigate this digital twin. Another key aspect of it is it can go into multiple different outputs. The desktop version is generally used for more technical analysis. It has more tools and data layers. The web version is generally used for public engagement. It's a little bit lighter. It will obviously go online and does not require any specific hardware. And then the virtual reality option is really that immersive, really impactful and impressive immersive experience to let people feel they literally are in another world. How intelligent that data then, or the information that you put on it, really depends on the data layers you can layer on top of it. And the ultimate aim for all of this is, well, to make accessible information on the built environment. There's so much data out there that's divided in sometimes obscure databases and in forms that we just can't connect things up together. The main power of a digital twin is just to bring all this information together and place it in an easily recognizable context, and so it's really quite a powerful platform for really getting to the crux of the information that we need. So this is an aerial view of the Docklands and the immediate environs. The grid that you're looking at here is represents 500 meter squares. Within those 500 meter squares, you see quite maybe a bit too small to make out in detail, but I'll just show you what those numbers are. It's basically an 8-digit number or two 4-digit numbers separated by an underscore. The first 4 digits are basically the ITM coordinates. So we're building in spatial awareness into the data. So each 500 meter square is what we call a tile. So the model is broken up into 500-meter tiles, and even if you lose the geospatial position, so we say, of the terrain in ortho, you'll know simply by its name that the top left-hand corner of that tile where it is in real-world space. The area that the Dublin city has grown since its initial one, the Docklands SDZ, is a much smaller area within this shaded blue area. So the plan obviously is to extend the model eventually to the whole of the city, but we're setting up the basis of what would be a scalable model by doing all the groundwork in the Dublin Docklands area. Part of that groundwork is building intelligence into the geometry. So this is the new database we've set up, and initially just for what we call the LOD 3 buildings. These are the more detailed geometry and photo textured buildings. On the left hand side of the spreadsheet, you see model ID. You've got ITM X and Y, air code. So basically what we're doing is we're integrating information from the air code database. So and this is inbuilt into the geometry, so it doesn't matter in what program you open up the model, you will see the model ID associated with this particular building, the EXO building. It'll be superseded by the air code. This builds in spatial intelligence at the very, very ground level. So therefore, if you've any information on the EXO building or on any building with an air code, once you have that other information with the air code, they can be seamlessly linked. So previously, again, this that information wasn't in the model. It was just sort of generic names that didn't have any spatial or unique identifier. So it's the air code followed by the building name. If the building doesn't have a name, it would be the first line of the address. So I'm just going to give two short demonstrations. One is actually a model that we've reasonably well built out already, just to kind of show what a finished model would look like, and that's Sandyford Business District in Dunleary. And then we'll have a look at the phase 1 result of the Dublin Docklands and City Centre Digital Twin. So so this, here we are in Sandyford. Sandyford Central is a recently new residential development in Sandyford. And if we just come out and look around, anybody familiar with this part of Dublin will know that Sandyford is an important business district in South Dublin. We can immediately look at the this is made up of these zones. So this is the area here from the Olaf J ground through to the central Sandyford Business Park and all the way out to Leopardstown Racecourse. And as you see, it's abutted by the M50 on the western side, and you've got the large Irish Water site and the Lewis on this northeastern side. So that's the area that has been worked up, shall we say, in detail. Talking about those different levels of detail. See, beyond the district, we've got what we would call level 0, simple plain massing blocks. And this is how a lot of these buildings start off, that simple massing. But if we even add a photo texture to a simple block, suddenly, without even having to model the windows and whatnot, you see all this additional information. So this has been photo textured from ground photography. So it's not from aerial photography. Everything you see here is a real photograph. You can see here a car, so we can add in animated traffic. Another quick thing you probably noticed is as I put my mouse or hovered my mouse over a building, it highlighted with the name coming up. If I click now on this building and click on show info, it shows me the air code, the address, the businesses, even the footprint which we've added in ourselves, the number of floors, total floor area, and the building use. Here's residential, and GFC stands for ground floor commercial. So every building, I think we haven't got anything for this husk of a building, a relic of the Celtic tiger, but every building has a unique name and has this information associated with it. So it's not just a pretty picture, this is a data infused model. Few other things just to show about the platform we're using. We've got our ITM coordinates in the bottom, the height of my view and the height above sea level, and we've got a see here, looking at the trees, the real-time shadows, which when I move the sun and time here, see that shadows move at a time of day, and also the trees are seasonally responsive. So if we're currently in the 1st July, if I move into September, you can start to see them turn. Let's go in the middle of the day here instead, and the leaves disappear altogether. So for visual impact analysis, trees are provide both cover and visual amenity. When we're looking sometimes at plans, very often they're only just looked at in the summer context. This allows us to see things in all times of day, and also of course it's not always sort of semi-bright like this. Sometimes it's overcast, and when it turns overcast, the shadows are removed. We can even build in rain, fog, but we'll maybe just go to a clear day now. So again, this is part of the physics associated with gaming technology. I will look very briefly at some of the other data layers we have here. So one question which is often asked is, yeah, this is all well and good. For example, this aerial photography was flown in 2021. What's the update process? And we would say that once you build your initial digital twin, the planning process itself should be keeping the model up to date. So if we take, for example, this site where we started off here with Sandyford Central, which was recently built. When the survey was flown, this was just a construction site, and by the time we had finished building the model, it was actually built, and we were able to get the plans from the developers and actually used the real photography of the site. So this is an example of how when you're tied into the planning process, you can add these models, and this can go down, as you can see, as to any level of detail you want. And we've done this with a few other locations. We can even put up a drone very, very locally, so rather than having to put out a standard aircraft, which this photography was captured, just using a drone, you can take go up to 100 meters, take a straight down shot, and literally paste that updated scenario, whether it's a new road junction or a new building development. So it doesn't need an expensive overall update. The other thing we have in here is land use zones. So as with most, pretty much everywhere, our territory is divided into different zones of use. Here the local authority is trying to rezone some areas, so as you can see that this is not imbued with very much greenery, yet we've got residential developments here, and we're actually trying to build our new residential core to the business district. So as you can clearly see, this is low-level warehousing, but planning permission has been put in for new residential developments in this area. And another thing we've got here are the recommended building heights. This is minimum building height, and then maximum building height. So this is presented in 2D as a color-coded map in the local area plan. We've obviously 3D'd this, and suddenly you kind of see the context with regards to the existing built environment, which agrees reasonably well. It's a little bit exceeding on the recently developed Sandyford development, but everywhere else you can see the building heights are aligned fairly well. We've got a strategic relationship with CIS, Construction Information Services, which essentially just summarizes all the data that's already on the planning portal. We've modeled up and the main approved, so anything that's green is approved but not yet built. If I click on this, it shows me the high level information on the planning development, the planning reference number. This is the Board Panola number, the planning application date of 2019, when it was granted, decision date in April 2019, the funding type, value, the area, the number of units, 706, and who the promoter and the architect was. So we've actually got this for a number. This is shaded blue because this is actually in construction. An apart hotel just here, build to rent apartments. Actually that's a second application on this particular site. This is colored red because it was actually refused, and if we go back to our building heights zone, you can see maybe why that was. It significantly exceeds the recommended building height. And we've got a number of other commercial ones as well behind us, which we'll see when I turn the camera around. So all of these, this is essentially seeing the potential shape of Sandyford. These are planning applications that in a working 3D planning assessment, applicants would be submitting the 3D models, which they have, because every significant development is being designed in 3D by architects. The only issue at the moment is that it's been in a way dumbed down by submitting 2D plans and some CGIs which are generated from these 3D models. So these are commercial approved commercial office developments in these sites. So as you can see, there's a significant amount of building that has been approved in the area but yet to be built. And again, this isn't in any sense, this is divided, in reality this information is divided between lots and lots of 2D files within the planning portal. There's no means to sort of see all of this in context, whereas if we were acquiring the 3D or requesting the 3D information at the outset, you can put all this into your central digital twin. And one other thing I will show you very briefly before we go on to the Dublin City model is the build tool, which allows us to quickly just do simple and easy context analysis. So in terms of initial design, this is our build tool here. This allows me to turn buildings off. So if I click on that and click on that, that turns that off. And say, for example, this is as simple as just painting. So I'm using this brush to paint in a particular area here, and I can, as I say, adjust my brush size down here. I might want to surround it with a bit of greenery, and I want to create a new building. So I'm just going to create maybe a tall block there, maybe another little bit on top, maybe something a little bit interesting at the front here. I might just move that in here, something like that. And now I'm going to finish this. So these three blocks are now together. It's already, I now hover over the building. It gives me a total floor area, 11 floors, and I can even look at the floor plates which had an option to adjust that width, by the way, and see the views from different floors. And hide interior, and maybe I want to just see, does that fit with the maximum allowable? Oh, you can see I'm well exceeding it there. So let's maybe just adjust this. So if we move, and maybe, there we go, something like that. We'll turn that off. So with the existing building heights, we've got something that's quite different, but you can see how the general concept works. And if I want to export that building, I can do that. Export as an OBJ. So I can just, this is the building I looked at previously. There's my model there. This is just open in a Windows 3D viewer. So anything I create in here can be opened in something else. If we go back into our viewer, we can add other things like vegetation, any different types of trees, even lights. So yeah, I can throw in a bunch of lights, and I can see how that looks. Those lights actually have real illuminated lights associated with them. So you can see how those lights I just put in there now illuminate. And if after you're finished your designs, you can import then a new building. So as I say in all good cookie programs, one we made before, maybe put that on this site here. So yeah, or another one here. Again, you can adjust those just using the same sort of movement tools. So these would be finished detailed models. It could be BIM models that you can quickly place in. So it really is sort of child's play in terms of ease of use, and that's a key component of this tool in digital twin. Is it's trying to make what would be previously very complex architectural tools available to non-technical professionals, whilst not dumbing anything down. Everything is spatially accurate. The information is still detailed and valid. But yeah, that's I think we've got height tools and distance tools, and we've got a solar power calculation tool for roofs, but we can look at that another time. So that's how actually before I do that, we'll just look at a couple of other quick one of the things that has driven this or funded this project was actually an EU project called IB Green, which is looking at how business parks can improve their green spaces. This just shows that the LiDAR data that lies underneath. You can see it goes from the low values of 75 meters above sea level up to beyond the M50 here up to over 100 meters. But a Italian company called Latitudo 40 was employed to look at they analyze satellite imagery, and they do this what's called surface urban heat island index calculation. It's a sort of a relative grading from 0 to 1, and you can see the blues are basically low heat values, red's hot. So you can see the built up environment generally leads to higher heat values. Wherever we've got a little bit of greenery, you see the blues, which sort of highlights quite dramatically how ungreen Sandyford is at the moment. And we've also got a tree density cover map. Again, very low in terms of density. It's only when you get towards Central Park and Leopardstown here where you have some vegetation, you start to see these greens. But the main bulk of the area is not well endowed with green space. So that's something obviously Sandyford and Dunleer Down Council wish to change. But again, this is just showing how we can add additional layers of information and one of the main projects that are currently being working on is an area within this these 3 buildings here, which are going to be acquired, and in this area. And we've got a potential, I think, design consultants. This was just our own mock-up of what a green space might look like. Just throwing in some sort of generic playground assets, and how we can see that might help the quality of life for local residents. And of course, if we want to put ourselves in their perspective, we can see how that literally looks like from their perspective. We can toggle this on and off. That's what they're looking at the moment. That's what they could have on their doorstep very soon. Okay, so that's Sandyford. Now going to go to so this is what a desktop view looks like. It's just a standalone executable which calls on data within this data folder. So you simply just double click this. Just taking a minute to load up. And here we are in the Dublin Docklands model. So you can see this roughly aligns with the area that we were showing you in the PowerPoint. I've even got a kind of an outline of the tiles built in here. So each of these is tiles is 500 meters. This is the naming convention for these 500 meter sections. So these are available within SketchUp, an FBX, OBJ.DAE, outside of our rendering platform here. The initial Dublin Docklands SDZ with the original model area was this area here. So as I say, we've got multiple levels of detail. We've got our more simpler massing blocks, but we've been working on updating the model. So some of these buildings were not built back in 2019. So we've done an extensive ground photographic survey and have been building, replacing some of the 2019 models with the as-built models, because even back then we got the architectural models. The design did change in some circumstances from what was initially submitted to what is actually now built. So, and again, if we hover over, we click on show info, here's the area code, the address, and the list of businesses. So we're just integrating each of these buildings has a unique identifier and the information that we have currently from the area code database. And let's say everything is a real photograph. We tried to obviously photograph without the obstruction of people and vehicles, but sometimes it's impossible. Here you can see a girl sitting on the step here who's being captured for posterity. But yeah, sometimes when you look at our images, you might see the outline of cars and whatnot, and that's unavoidable. But by and large, we're getting basically the architectural information as it is at a point in time. In terms of the planning data, we've got on this waterfront site, this is planning approved. Right beside it, this is actually in construction. And again, we've got again, this same information. In fact, we've actually broken it down a bit more than what you would have seen. Here we've got the breakdown in the number of units, total apartments 420, but we've even split it down into the number between 1 bed, 2 beds, and 3 beds. So at an instance, you see all the high-level information associated with this development. In Sandyford, we went and modelled all of these. It's not practical for us to do that at this point in time from a time and cost perspective. So we took a different approach to the CIS information. I can click on this Show All, and what we've got here instead are sort of bars that are color coded depending on the type of application. So blue's mainly commercial, yellow's residential, pink is hospitality. So and they're scaled largely depending on the size of the development. So if we look at these 3 residential developments, if I click on this Show Information, we can see there's 702 units in this development on the Castleforbes, former Castleforbes Business Park. If I click on this one, there's 554. And if I click on this one, there is 131. So we've got a kind of a rough scaling based on basically the size of the development. And same over here. This is basically unit area space, so we don't have units as such, but where commercial is defined in terms of floor area, 67,000 square meters here, and this one is 47,000 square meters here. So and again, it just as a quick visual, you can see where all the approved planning developments are. Large one out in Ringsend there. So we have added in fact, this is quite up to date. So for example, the shipping office here and 1 Lime Street residential development behind it. We're only, if you look at the underlying area photography, in fact it actually shows a construction site. So we had to model this from the CAD plans, and there's a number of other sites like that. For example, over here in the Cooper's Cross residential development. This is relatively recent as well. I'll just hide all of these for a moment. You can see there actually you've got an animated Lewis travelling up and down. But again, even within this development, it looks like one contiguous block, but in reality it is actually split into 3 different houses, and we have this sort of divided Glazier House, Marina Hall, Bond House. And if you look at the underlying area photography, again this is a construction site, yet these buildings are now built, haven't actually opened yet. So there is a job of work just to do maybe another aerial survey that will cover some of these. And then another thing we've been looking at, which is critical to housing supply, is looking at vacancies. We've got included the derelict properties in the derelict site register. Doesn't seem to be any within our immediate model area, but we're looking at some of these areas here on Seville Place, Emerald Street, Beaver Street. So again, this just as a quick visual shows you where registered derelict properties are. Another database on vacancy is the geodirectory vacancy, which doesn't deal with an entire building, but can be one small part of a building. It could be an empty office as part of a larger block. And again, a visual, blues commercial, but 2/3 of all the I think 1,000 records, just over 1,000 records here are commercial, and the other is residential. Some of these I would probably question at the moment because they may have been just sort of fully been fitted out. I would imagine most of these are now filled up, but this data relates to the 4th quarter in 2024. But again, Every single element can be interrogated with a simple hover over information on what the address is. Okay. And say the plan going forward in the next stage is to some of these buildings here, for example, would be level 2 detail, where it's more sort of flat facade with texture, but we're aiming to add model IDs for anything that's photo textured. So from a visual perspective, if you can see the visual detail in the model, you know it has a unique building identifier, and then anything which is untextured will not have that unique identifier, but will be have a group name on the buildings based on the tile that it's in. But ideally going forward, everywhere will basically be photo textured, have a unique model ID, and it'll be one of the most detailed and information infused digital twins anywhere basically. Okay, thank you for your time.